Yeah. Okay, so you were at CAIS. How long were you at CAIS?
So I qualified. I did just over 2 years with Ian. I did a year in probably what's best described as a holding role at CAIS, and then this guy, the chief executive, invited me to become the manager of their service, and I managed their services for 5 years, and then went on to manage probation services for 5 years after that. So I did this 10-year phase of essentially managing, whole North Wales areas of drug and alcohol services through quite expansive period of service provision as well. So yeah, 5 years at CAIS and then 5 years at probation from 2000 through to 2010. I probably joined CAIS in 1999, but
yeah, so you'd have been around about a year when we came. So so what were you left with thinking about the field after that 10 years? And then I think also let's think about, because that was the time that the advocacy movement was sort of growing, wasn't it? Yeah. That's something I'd like to talk to you about, how that grew and how it started to disappear. So what were your thoughts about that time?
I had lots of mixed thoughts because I did lots of different bits, really.
Or maybe we should start what you're doing within probation service. What's best?
Yeah, so the shift was, I suppose, when I was in CAIS and managing their community services. So their community services were a whole, they were still based on the old counselling model like Wakada and stuff like that, but they'd begun to get group work services and group work contracts within the criminal justice service. We'd developed new contracts to deliver employment change programs for the Department of Work and Pensions and doing move on houses. So lots of those sort of things. Eventually two things maybe catalyst me to leave and join probation. So, and they're pretty easy to identify. One, I talked to you about having a really healthy relationship with the chief executive. Eventually that relationship broke. It actually broke mostly over we wanted an accelerated role of people with lived experience in the service, and he was very resistant to that. I think he felt the professionalisation was what kept the contracts. Ironically, we were probably just crystal ball gazing, because it would have had CAIS particularly in a much fitter place to have won a lot more contracts when not very long afterwards Welsh Government started really shouting its service user involvement agenda, and they kind of had to play catch up with that in the end because they dismantled so many of the staff that were up for it. But also I knew that long term I was now, wherever I was, 8-9 years post qualified as a social worker, and I'd already started doing a little bit of social work education by then, but I knew that I'd not actually worked in any form of a statutory sector, and it's a bit of a requirement for social work at some level. And I didn't want to join social services and stuff. And then just because of all of that criminal justice expansion and everything else, there became a job available in the North Wales Probation Service that was specifically available for just managing, essentially it was managing all of the drug and alcohol service provision they did and all of the group work they did. So they chucked a little bit of domestic abuse and sex offending in it, but actually and I applied for the job thinking I wasn't much chance of me getting it, and it was just the bizarrest job interview I've ever been for. It was a day and a half long. It had 4 assessments on the first day, and 4 of us turned up on the first day to go through all of these assessments. Only 2 people turned up the next day. The interview itself was me being interviewed by 4 men in suits. Well, 3 men in suits and 1 man in a police uniform, which was quite surreal, really. And there's me still, because you know me, no shirt and tie for anyone under any circumstances. Anyway, I think I got the job because I was the last man standing. Actually, not for any other reason.
That's the title of your biography.